getting quality wins over, first round LeBron and AD, although they were not 100%. Now against the MVP and Nikola Jokic, sweeping them. They got to be really confident going to the next round. Hello and welcome to the Monday, June 14th edition of the TV on Basketball podcast with your host, TV. Hope you're all having a fantastic day and thank you for clicking on to watch or listen to today's episode. Before we start, I do have to plug my other platforms. Remember to follow at TV on Basketball on Twitter, Facebook, and Instagram for updates on the podcast and for other awesome content. If you're on YouTube, remember to like, share, and subscribe. Hit the notification bell so you won't miss an episode. That would be highly appreciated. And for all my podcast listeners, if you're on Apple, subscribe, leave a review. And if you're on Spotify, Anchor, or Podbean, just show your support in any way possible. I really do appreciate all of you. We just eclipsed 2,900 downloads. Thank you guys so much for all the support. On the road to 3K, and been just really enjoying this. I talked about this in my 200th episode special. I appreciate all of you. It's a slow grind, and I'm here for it, and I love talking basketball, so I'm going to keep doing it. And if you guys can continue to show your support, that would be highly, highly appreciated. Got a good show lineup for you today. We're going to be talking about the games from over the weekend. One series finished in a sweep, so we're going to get into that. And then we're going to be talking about basically what it really takes to win a championship and kind of the biggest factor for me when it comes to winning a championship. And we're going to end some things off with some other news and notes. So yeah, again, thank you guys for all the support. Thank you for clicking on. And yeah, let's get into this episode. Sit back, relax, and let's get right into topic number one. And we're going to be going to the series that actually finished this weekend. The Nuggets versus Suns. The Suns defeat the Nuggets in 4 games. They complete the sweep. And we're going to go basically into the 2 games that happened this weekend that led to the sweep. In Game 3, the Suns beat the Nuggets 116-102. Another great all-around effort. Chris Paul led the way in this one for... was the best player for the Suns here, 27, 6, and 8. Devin Booker is very good as well, 28 points and 6 rebounds, 4 assists as well. And on the Denver side of things, Nikola Jokic, man. This guy is special. He played absolutely fantastic. 32 points, 20 rebounds, 10 assists. That's only the third 30-20 game in playoff history, along with Wilt Chamberlain and Kareem Abdul-Jabbar. He is in that category, but he still lost by 14. And for me, just watching this game, I'm going to talk about this in Game 4 as well. Chris Paul in that mid-range shot over and over and over again. It's honestly a sight to watch. I mean, just the way he's just able to do it at different angles. It doesn't matter if you're big, you're small. He's going to get the shot off, and he's going to hit it, I'm going to say a good 80% of the time. And, him along with Devin Booker, another good, all-around performance from other people helping out as well. 40 from Crowder, 11 from Bridges. And just some decent bench production is what led the Suns to this win because, like I've mentioned in past games, it's better that this game, Jokic actually got some help from, Monte Morris and Will Barton, who did come back in this game from injury. But the supporting cast of the Nuggets just doesn't match up at all to the supporting cast of the Phoenix Suns. And that showed again in this game. Then we go into Game 4, and it's do or die for the Nuggets. They're down 3-0. They come out of the gates firing. But then the Phoenix had just got right back in this game, and they actually ended up the quarter strong. The Nuggets came back and made that game at in the second quarter. But then the Suns, like they always do, man, they always find a way to kind of just break away in the third quarter. And then one of those plays, Nikola Jokic attacked the rim, thought he got fouled, and oh man, he thought he got fouled. He didn't get the call. He was frustrated. He goes over to the ball, the person who has the ball, who's Cameron Payne, takes a massive swipe at him. His hand gets the ball, but for the people who say, no, that was all ball, no, his forearm, this part here, swiped Cam Payne across the face. And that warranted a review. There was a mini scuffle or a talking bout between Devin Booker and Nikola Jokic. The teammates, of course, had to separate them, and the referees went to review. Devin Booker got technical. but Nikola Jokic got charged with a flagrant 2. Reason they said was wind up, impact, and the wind up and the impact and like kind of the area of the face that he hit. That's what warranted a flagrant 2. Now look, flagrant 2. I was afraid that was gonna happen, but for me, it's a flagrant 1. Just the way like he winded up. Obviously, it's a dumb play to do. Nikola Jokic said after the game he just wanted to kind of change the attitude of this game and hopefully like spark something in the Nuggets. And it cost him the game. It really did cost him the game in this one. This was in the midst of a Phoenix run, but at the same time, when your MVP goes out with a flagrant foul, I mean, he was ejected, I think it was like midway through the third quarter. They got no chance. I mean, was it warranted? I don't think it was warranted. Was it a dumb reaction on Jokic's behalf? Yes, it was a dumb reaction, especially in a closeout, in a do-or-die situation. But I didn't think it was a flagrant 2. I really didn't. But that kind of took away the juice from the game. Because the Nuggets, kind of stuck around. I mean, Michael Porter Jr. had 20 points in this one. They got some help from Will Barton, who this is his second game back, but he actually played absolutely fantastic. Got something out of Campazzo from Monte Morris as well. I mean, they tried, but again, the Chris Paul barrage. And I want to say this again, because that barrage in the third quarter where he just kept hitting mid-range after mid-range. I mean, he's been doing this all series, and he just did it again here. 37 points and 7 assists in this one for Chris Paul. Highest point game that he had ever since the 2017-2018 season. Devin Booker was phenomenal as well, 34 and 11. And those two alone combining for 71 points. I mean, the Denver Nuggets and Nikola Jokic, they're just not going to be able to match that up. And although I do talk about the Jokic thing as well, I do not want to take anything away from this Phoenix Suns team who played an absolute fantastic series. They were composed. They were clutch. They made the right decisions. I mean, there were some moments, especially like late in games when it looked like the Denver Nuggets were going to come back, that their youth was showing. I mean, Devin Booker made some dumb plays. Same thing with Campaign and stuff like that. But when you have Chris Paul in your ear saying, okay, you got to slow things down. We got to do this. You got to do that. It is a massive, massive advantage. And he was so good in this series, man. Chris Paul, last series, people were worried about his shoulders and all that. I don't think people are worried now. People are 100% not worried now. And he played such a good game. Like every game of the series, he was just leading the way. In this one, he was the leading point scorer. I mean, this guy was just taking over on the offensive end. And it led to the demise of the Denver Nuggets, who, I'm going to keep saying this series would be a lot more interesting if Jamal Murray was here. He is that impactful as a perimeter threat. It allows Jokic to go inside the paint more. It allows him to have more passing lanes open because you got to worry about Jamal Murray. This whole series would be different with Jamal Murray, and we'll go into that a bit later. But yeah, you can't take away from the Phoenix Suns team. For a team who hasn't made the playoffs in 2009, they bring in Chris Paul. It's basically like Chris Paul, Jay Crowder, and a bunch of young dudes, man. And they're getting these wins. They're getting quality wins over, first round LeBron and AD, although they were not 100%. Now against the MVP and Nikola Jokic, sweeping them. They got to be really confident going to the next round. And Chris Paul at 36 years old, his body is there's some wear and tear in it, especially I'm not 100% sure if that shoulder problem is away. Getting this week break, waiting for this Utah Jazz Clippers series to finish is very, very key to them. And, the Suns played a great series. Tip your hats off to them. The Nuggets were just outmatched, plain and simple. Very good win for the Phoenix Suns. And now, as we usually do, we're going to discuss my series awards for the Denver Nuggets and Phoenix Suns series. We're going to get right into it. My MVP, plain and simple, Chris Paul. He was just amazing. He was just amazing in this series. Like I mentioned, that 37-point game to close it out was just absolutely fantastic. I mean, the way he was just able to how do you call it? Like, the way he was able just to do things so easily. Like, he saw Nikola Jokic in the paint. He's like, nah. This is just too easy for me, man. And then he just went to the same spot, right in the elbow, mid range, whatever. Man, this guy just did it all, and tips off to him. Tips off to him. He did absolutely fantastic in this series. He finished it off with 25 points per game, 10 assists, 5 rebounds. You can't ask for anything more from your 36-year-old superstar. He was the best player. He is clearly the MVP of this series. The best bench player, a lot of the damage came from the starting lineup for sure, but I'm gonna give it to Cameron Payne. I'm gonna just give it to Cameron Payne, and it's nothing crazy that he did offensively coming off the bench. I mean, I gave it to him last series as well, but that was because he kind of took over the Chris Paul role when Chris Paul was injured. But this one, I mean, he didn't have to do much, but he did his job when he was in the game. He had just a solid performance, 6 points per game. He was good. He was definitely a good player for them. 6.8 points per game, 2 assists, 2 rebounds. Just did his thing. And that was key, especially just taking minutes off Chris Paul. He's just a solid backup. And to think that this guy was just moving from team to team, the Bulls, the Thunder, the Raptors, couldn't find a home, played overseas for a year. Now he's on the Suns. He's considered one of the best backup point guards in the league. Good job on campaign. And for now, I'm going to go move on to the most disappointing player. I mean, I don't want to do this because he did have some back problems throughout the series. But, as someone who wanted to be a number 2 option, he really just couldn't perform. He didn't give Jokic that consistent number 2 option in this series. I'm going to have to give it to Michael Porter Jr. And like I said, I mean, I'm going to preface this with he did have some back problems, but 15 points per game, 5 rebounds, 1 assist, 1 steal in this series. For number 2, that's just not good enough. Hopefully he can improve in his game. He definitely improved defensively this series, but he just needs to get the consistency, man. Michael Porter Jr. has all the tools, but he needs to get that consistency that he just couldn't show in the series. I mean, Nikola Jokic was the best player by far on the Nuggets, and there was always a different number 2. I mean, it was either Monte Morris, it was Michael Porter Jr., it was this. I mean, there was just no consistent number 2, and Michael Porter Jr. Was the guy who was supposed to take the next step, but he couldn't, so I have him as my most disappointed. And then my favorite moment from the series was actually off the court. That interview when DeAndre Ayton was talking to the media, then he realized that Jokic had a 30, 20, and 10 game after game 3, and he's like, oh my goodness, that's insane. He got 10 offensive rebounds as well. I mean, DeAndre Ayton was just in shock, and he's like, yep, he's the MVP. He's 100% the MVP. That's what an MVP does. So, yeah, that was a fun moment. I wish the series went longer. I believe my prediction for the series is Nuggets in 7. I think that was my prediction, which was really, bad on my part. That was definitely bad on my end. I had Denver in 7, but mistakes have been made. Mistakes have been made. The Suns get the sweep. Congratulations for them. Now let's move on to the other series that happened. The other series and the games that happened over the weekend. We're gonna start off with the Nets Bucks series and one game played over this weekend. The Bucks win 107 to 96, and finally, the Milwaukee Bucks hit over 10 threes, and they hit quite over 10 threes because they are actually on fire, especially in the first half. They ended up with 16. They definitely got cold near the end, but they were still absolutely fantastic in this game in terms of shooting the basketball and just being able to play their game. They got some threes from Holiday. Giannis hit his first 3. Middleton with a couple. PJ Tucker had 11 points in the first half. They were playing very, very well. And as for the Brooklyn Nets, I mean, Kevin Durant, 28 points on 25 shots, not the best. And then they just couldn't get offense anywhere else, especially because Kyrie Irving left very early in this game with injury. He landed on Giannis's ankle, going up for a rebound. And I do want to tell the people who are watching this or listening to this, tell me if DM me, comment in the comment section of my video, whatever. Do you think that should be a flagrant? Because of course the NBA has a rule: if a shooter is in the air and you get into his landing space, that is a flagrant foul, a la the Zaza Pachulia rule. Can that be the same for rebounds? I think it should be considered. I'm kind of 80% yes, that should be a flagrant because again, it's still a dangerous area where a guy's going after a rebound, and if you get into his landing space, something dangerous could happen. I'm not saying that play by Giannis was dirty, but just something to like look at if you're the NBA. I think that should be something that could be considered a flagrant foul as well. And the fact that there was just no call in general there is definitely questionable. But ever since Kyrie came out, I mean, it just kind of lost all juice for the Brooklyn Nets. Blake didn't have a great game. He was getting cooked in the paint by Giannis and by Brook Lopez constantly. Bruce Brown just couldn't get things going. There's just not like the only other guy who scored over 10 points in this game was Kyrie Irving, and he left in the second quarter. So that tells you all you need to say about this game. Durant tried. He was this is the first time in a while that he was the lone superstar, and I don't think he had a fun time whatsoever. But yeah, the Milwaukee Bucks played great. They played absolutely great this game. They finally hit over 10 threes in a game this series. And even besides that, I do want to mention this. I think this is the best way to use Giannis all series long. I've been saying that whenever he takes a jumper, it's just giving the defense, a free pass, because they're trying to defend you at all in the paint, and you're not making them work for it. You're open, but there's a reason why he's open, and he's just giving, he's letting the defenders off the hook there. Another way that Giannis is letting the defenders off the hook is him stopping at the top, him starting his play at the top of the key, because you know what they're doing all series long, and this actually happened a couple of times here. He starts at the top of the three, and then just barges in, and then the Nets just keep drawing charges. That happened like 3 or 4 times in this game. One of them got overturned, but still, that's another way where Giannis is kind of, hoping that he could just barge into the paint, but the Nets are waiting for them. Like, that's just not how you're going to get your points. But you know what they did in this game for Giannis? They started him in the post. They got him some post touches. They got him into that mid-range area to start his ascent to the rim. And then he got him on cuts, just cutting to the rim. Those are things that are just so much better for Giannis to succeed instead of him being the ISO guy at the top of the key, him shooting jumpers. What they did that game was absolutely perfect for Giannis. And if they can use him like that for the rest of the series, I think the Nets are in trouble, because one of my things before the series is that they have no one to stop him. And if they got these actions going on, these cuts, these touches like at different ends of the floor and different areas of the floor, it's so hard to stop Giannis because he is bigger, stronger, and faster mostly than anyone on that Brooklyn Nets roster. So yeah, they got to keep doing that. They played good defense. Will Kyrie and Harden come back next game? I have a feeling Harden more than likely than Kyrie. But this series can completely change if any of these guys are going to miss any significant time, because as good of a player Kevin Durant is, if you're missing two of your 3 best players, including players that are top 12 players in the league, both of them respectively, it's going to be tough. And with the Bucks finally finding this momentum, it's going to definitely be hard to take him down. Hopefully they do come back though, because I don't want this to be I don't want this to be kind of remembered for the injuries and stuff like that. So hopefully Kyrie and Harden come back relatively soon. Hopefully the next game, but we're gonna have to wait and see, because these guys there's a reason why people were down the Nets. I mean, the injuries, the chemistry, the defensive play. The injuries were the biggest part here, and I'm gonna get into injuries later. But yeah, that definitely did hurt him there. The Bucks get the win. They finally played. They used Giannis the right way. They hit the threes. Good win for the Bucks. Moving on to the next series, we're going to be talking about the Clippers versus Jazz. This shouldn't take too long. Going back to LA, Game 3. I wasn't going to say I predicted a blowout, but you knew the Clippers were going to come with some sort of urgency, and man, did they respond well. The Clippers win this Game 3, 132-106. Big victory for the LA Clippers here. And literally the story for this game for me is that the stars finally played like stars. Kawhi with 34. Paul George with 31. Very efficient scoring. And this is the first 30-plus point game for either of them in this series. And look at that. They won. No, I'm not going to say it's just them, because Nick Batum, 17 points. Reggie Jackson, 17 points. They got, some good points off the bench from Kennard, Beverly, Terrence Mann. It was not just the stars in this one. The other guys around him were actually hitting a couple shots. And for the Utah Jazz, the complete opposite. I mean, Donovan Mitchell, another 30-point game, third one of the series. But Jordan Clarkson, 5 for 16, not going to cut it. 2 out of 10 for Bojan Bogdanovic, not going to cut it. And when those guys aren't stepping up and the Clippers are playing at their absolute best, you're not going to win this, even if you're Donovan Mitchell, who has been on fire all series long. This is a game where they definitely missed Mike Conley because they were definitely trying to get the ball out of Spider's hands a couple of times. And his teammates had opportunities, but they just could not convert them. Mike Conley missed his third straight game with that hamstring injury once again. Hopefully he comes back. I really do hope so because the Jazz could still win it, especially if they can continue playing like they did in the first 2 games. But in the games like that where they lost so badly, having a true point guard in Mike Conley is very, very important for this team. And not only on the offensive end, but on the defensive end, man. He is just a very good player. There's a reason why he was named an All-Star this year. They missed him in this one, and with the Clippers, one more game there in LA, they're going to come out with the same ferocity, trying to get back in the series 2-2. Because if they're down 3-1, I just don't know if they're going to be able to come back from that. Especially going back to Utah, I think that's going to be a tough scenario. But if Conley can play game 4, hopefully he can. There's no news on that yet. I think that gives Jazz an extra punch. It means that Donovan Mitchell doesn't have to control the ball or Joe Ingles all the time. You got Mike Conley there. He's a true point guard. He's cool, calm, and composed. I think he's going to be very important to this team being able to get game 4 or just being able to win the series in general. So hopefully he comes back because, in these situations, Donovan Mitchell is going to perform. He's shown that time and time again. But when the other guys aren't doing it for him, Mike Conley's there to kind of be that consistent second guy for them. And they definitely do miss him in the series. The Clippers did get a good win, but the Jazz just couldn't hit their shots. For the first time of the series, not for the first time of the series, but Donovan Mitchell just didn't get enough help, plain and simple. And Kawhi and Paul George, they got to continue to play like this if they're gonna want to get out of this series against this tough Jazz team. Now let's move on to the final game. Another blowout. 76ers versus Hawks, game 3. 127-111. They were back in Atlanta, but the 76ers just came out firing. And it wasn't a Joel Embiid takeover game like it has been in game 1 and game 2. Better production all around. 12 points from Dwight Howard, 14 from Korkmaz, 22 from Tobias Harris, 18 from Ben Simmons. It was a good all-around effort from Philly. And what sucked for the Atlanta Hawks is before the game, we got the news that Deandre Hunter kind of re-aggravated his injury from the end of the regular season, and he's going to miss the rest of the playoffs. And that's unfortunate because he is their best perimeter defender. He has taken strides in terms of improvement in the offensive end. They definitely are going to miss that. And although that's not really their biggest problem, their perimeter defense, Embiid is basically their biggest problem. It would have been nice, especially in this type of game, to kind of slow down Tobias Harris, kind of slow down Ben Simmons a bit because he has the size. That type of stuff that Deandre Hunter brought to you on that end of the floor was going to be missed. And they're already missing Cam Reddish anyways, who's another one of those, lanky defenders who could go off at any time. They're missing him too. It's just going to be a tough role for the Atlanta Hawks, especially with the 76ers finally finding their flow on the offensive end. Them having no answer for Embiid. Just plain simple. They're just outmatched. Trae Young could play as well as he can. In this game 3, he was great. 28 points, 8 assists, 9 for 17 shooting. He was efficient. But he just couldn't, the rest of his team just couldn't catch up offensively to a very, very good 76er team who was good all season long. They got the number 1 seed, and they're showing why they got the number 1 seed. They have the defenders. They have the offensive personnel. And they just outmatched the Hawks, plain and simple. Are the Hawks going to miss DeAndre Hunter? Yeah. They're definitely going to miss DeAndre Hunter, and I think he would have been helped in the series. But the 76ers are just better, man. And even if the Hawks lose this, they're fine. This is a massive, massive improvement than what they've been doing the last few years. Now they kind of know who they want to keep around their team, who they think is going to be good for them long term. And they still have to make a big decision on the John Collins contract, and I'm going to talk about that in probably a future episode. But right now, the 76ers are playing great. They're up 2-1. I think the 76ers are not going to look back. I think this could be done in 5 games, maybe 6. But I'm gonna say this is going to be ending in 5 games, especially without Deandre Hunter. I don't see the Hawks getting another win. I really don't. This, with the way the 76ers are playing. Before we get into the other news and notes, I do want to talk about kind of the thing about winning a championship in the NBA. And if you see the title of this video, it's called NBA Survival of the Fittest. And I think I mentioned this like earlier on in the season with the COVID testing and stuff. I mean, obviously I wasn't expecting like this amount of improvement since then. But I said that having a deep team this season is more important more than ever. Because of what could possibly happen with the COVID protocols, we don't know. We don't know, like, I mean, it was a shortened offseason as well. So this is just a completely different type of season for all of these NBA players. And everyone talks about talent winning championships. You know, what the Brooklyn Nets did, what the Miami Heat did in the past, like the Golden State Warriors. I mean, talent does win championships. Chemistry also wins championships. I mean, if you had a team for a while and they know how to play with each other, that just gives them an extra edge, you know, when trying to win a championship. But I think even more important to that, and the key to winning a championship, is health. It is 100% health, and I think this playoffs is completely emblematic of that fact. If you look through the teams that are struggling or like are kind of not on the verge of losing, but have a good chance of losing, even like not just this round, but in the past rounds, the Celtics missing Jaylen Brown and Kemba Walker. Basically, and Kemba Walker was out for like 3 of the 5 games. It's tough for the Celtics. They just can't bounce back from that. The Lakers, AD not 100% whatsoever. LeBron didn't look like 100%. Survival of the fittest. Nuggets, no Will Barton for the first part of the playoffs, and he was only there for the last 2 games. Dozier didn't play, and of course Jamal Murray with that torn ACL. Nets, as you've seen, Kyrie and Harden went down in the second round. Hawks, DeAndre Hunter. Clippers, Serge Ibaka, who had to have back surgery over the weekend, and is going to miss the rest of these playoffs. And I think he was going to be a massive part of this team trying to go deep into the playoffs, and now they don't have him. The Utah Jazz, the Mike Conley situation, the 76ers, the Danny Green situation. All of these teams have some sort of injuries, and literally these injuries could be, you know, the biggest difference between them winning a championship and not. So yeah, the talented teams, yes, it's important to have that. It's important to have chemistry. But most importantly, it's good to have depth and good to have, you know, enough players so that you don't, if one guy goes down, the next person up mentality, you know, is clear within your team. That's why the Raptors, when they won the championship, they were so good. Because if one guy goes down, another guy can step up and play his role. Not perfectly, but he could do a good enough job. The Warriors teams, when they won, they had a deep enough bench. The Cavs, they were picking up veterans who wanted to win a championship, but still had some skill. That's what got them to championships. That is the biggest factor in trying to win championships. And when you're looking at some of the favorites, like the Phoenix Suns right now, they're completely healthy. Knock on wood, nothing happens to Chris Paul now. But right now, they're playing at their best because all their guys are basically at full strength. When you look at teams like the Milwaukee Bucks, who are finally back in the series, they got no injuries really to speak of. The 76ers, I mean, I did mention Danny Green, but with their 2 stars in Embiid and Simmons playing like this, they have a good shot. And now you're looking at the teams like the Brooklyn Nets, who looked like to be heavy favorites, but just like the regular season, they are now missing Kyrie. They're now missing James Harden. Injuries hurt. I mean, that sounds like kind of not contradictory, but you know, there's no pun intended, but it hurts, man. It absolutely does hurt. And having, you know, the top talent is good. Having chemistry is good, but having this team healthy is the biggest part of this of trying to win the finals, because it is the survival of the fittest. And look, you know, injuries are part of the game. We should take away the narrative that injuries determine how much we validate a championship. You know, people in 2019 like to clown the Raptors, like, oh, no KD, no Klay Thompson. People want to talk about in, you know, 2015 when Kevin Love and Kyrie went down. People want to clown them about that. There's so many instances. I mean, you need some sort of luck to win a championship, and you only can play the teams in front of you. So I don't want to take away any from the championship. But my point is here. health is wealth. Health is wealth, and more than anything, having your guys healthy for a deep playoff run is absolutely massive. And I think the biggest part into teams just winning a championship. That's how they're gonna win it. That's how they're going. And that's how they're gonna be able to, go up against teams who are healthy. I mean, you could tell like a huge difference when, someone like a Jamal Murray is out of the team, when Anthony Davis is out of the team. Those are key players, and even people like Deandre Hunter. That just changes a whole complexion of the Atlanta Hawks. So yeah, we could talk about all this stuff, but making sure people are healthy, I wouldn't say it's a skill, but it's something very, very important in terms of winning a championship. Talent is great, chemistry is great, but health is wealth. And when you look at the teams who are possibly going to win a championship, the Nets, they're going to need Kyrie and Harden back if they want to keep doing that. And you need to have you have to be as healthy as possible. And when you see the top teams, they're the ones with the most health right now. Before we end this podcast, let us do some other news and notes. Pascal Siakam is going to have shoulder surgery. He had it over the weekend and is bound to miss 5 months. So what is it right now? June? That means he's going to be returning around the November time, which is actually like a couple weeks into the season. So Pascal Siakam might miss the start of the season. But that's fine. As long as he's recovering, as long as he's healthy, hopefully this surgery can help him get back to his best. Jeremy Lin. There were reports of him earlier, a few weeks ago, that he might have retired. Then he shut those rumors down. He said he's trying to get an NBA contract. It looks like he hasn't, so he's actually returning to the Beijing Ducks for the next season for the Chinese Basketball League or Chinese Basketball Association. So yeah, for people who thought Jeremy Lin was retiring, he isn't. He's there, and he's going to play for the team that I think he played for last year in the Beijing Ducks. So nice for Jeremy Lin. Hopefully we can see him on an NBA roster soon. And then Spencer Dinwiddie. There's been some crazy news coming from this weekend that Spencer Dinwiddie, he partially torn his ACL very early in the season, could be aiming to return in the finals. Now look, if they make it to the finals, I would safely assume that James Harden and Kyrie Irving are back from injury. That's how they're able to get past the Bucks and then possibly the 76ers. If Dinwiddie is in the finals, they're just spoiled for depth. Because people like Joe Harris, I mean, he struggled this series, but he's still a big part of this team. Mike James, Jeff Green is now back from injury. The way Blake Griffin is playing. You add someone who scored last year 20 points per game in the playoffs, 20 points per game in the regular season, to come off your bench. I mean, obviously he's not going to play as well as he did last year, especially coming off a partially torn ACL. But having Spencer Dinwiddie in the lineup, oh man, this Nets team is just spoiled for talent. So if they're able to make it there and Dinwiddie comes back, I don't know if anyone in the West is going to be able to deal with that. Because you imagine if Kyrie Irving, James Harden, and Kevin Durant combined for like 61 points. I mean, that's something that if you're the opposition team, you'll take. Imagine if Spencer Dinwiddie comes in and drops 25. Oh, that would be heartbreaking. That would be so heartbreaking for a team. And yeah, he's just that type of player. I mean, I thought he was going to get traded at the trade deadline. He didn't. And if he comes back, if the Nets make the finals, that would be absolutely fantastic for them. And I think would really, I mean, they're probably going to win anyway, but this is just an extra incentive, or kind of, it's like a toy, right? You just get it. It's fun to have, but you don't really need it. I mean, you don't really need Spencer Dinwiddie, but if they have him back, they'll take him. It's a luxury. It would be great to see him there, win a championship, and actually play in the playoffs. So we'll have to wait and see, but that's something to definitely look out for. But yeah, those are all the news and notes. Let me know what you guys think of any of these series, what I say about the injuries. Let me know down below in the comment section below. DM me, comment on my Instagram posts, whatever you need to do. But I think this is where we're going to end things. Thank you guys for watching and listening. Remember to show love on all the podcast channels. Like, share, and subscribe if you're on YouTube. And remember to follow @TV on Basketball on Twitter, Facebook, and Instagram for some awesome content. I'm looking to have a guest come on Friday once again. Last Friday, we had Joe from Critical Condition Sports. I know it was a shorter episode because he had some interviews to do throughout the day, but it was still a good episode. You should go definitely check it out. I'm planning to have one on Friday, so hopefully that comes to fruition. But man, we're getting closer and closer to the NBA finals. one series is done in the second round. Hopefully these other series go a bit longer to make things more interesting. But yeah, I'm excited for the rest of these playoffs, and I'm excited to give you guys more content. Yeah, thank you guys for all the support, for 2,900 downloads. I really do appreciate you guys. I think we were like 1 or 2 subscribers from 40 subscribers as well. So, hey, remember to hit the subscribe button to help join the family, help continue to grow this community. I really do appreciate all of you. But yeah, like I said, this is where we're going to end things. Thank you guys for watching and listening. Hope you have a fantastic day. TV signing out. Take it easy, guys.